Good afternoon, everyone,
Good afternoon.
and welcome. My name is Maggie Brown, and I'm with the Georgetown Program in Democracy and Governance.
My name is Stephanie Greenhut, and I work at the National Archives.
My name is Charisma Howell. I'm a practicing lawyer and former professor here at the College of Law.
Hello, I would like to start off. My name is Jasmine Robertson, and this is Unit 6. My name is Charmaine Lewis-Hardy.
My name is Mark Brody.
My name is Chandler Boozer. My name is Sade Walker.
Okay. Well, thank you for being with us today. Voluntary associations provide social energy and fuel for change in the practices of states and businesses. They also motivate people to raise their voices in the public sphere. Do you agree or disagree with this appraisal? What evidence can you cite to support your response?
We agree that voluntary associations do provide social energy and fuel for change. But first, we must define what voluntary organizations are. They are groups of people who believe that the community comes first before themselves. Voluntary associations are a social organization who help by tending to the needy, elderly, and sponsoring athletic events for the youth. In other words, they work to reach the common good of the community.
Voluntary associations provide fuel for change in the practice of businesses because these organizations address a variety of interests, from business networking to community service. For example, today in the modern world, there are organizations that help to raise money for the homeless and other public problems that affect our world today. Voluntary associations motivate people to raise their voices in the public sphere because others will feel motivated by others that are engaging in the organization to help make a better community. And more people will want to get involved because it is something that affects them. So some examples of voluntary organizations include Metro Teen AIDS. Their mission is to help young people who really need to reach their full potential to become a good citizen.
A voluntary association is American democracy. In other words, they are a group of citizens who come together to better the community's interests. While on the other hand, a faction is a small portion of a large group who is contrary to the rights of other people. Meaning, they would do everything in their power to better themselves and engage in activities designed to benefit their own group. In Federalist Number 10, Madison argued that people in political parties, in other words factions, can get the people in their party to vote a certain way that doesn't necessarily benefit the common good. For example, the Democrats and the Republicans now have millions of people from the public who vote, argue, and choose sides based on their political views that they feel is best for their interests.
However, every once in a while, a voluntary service organization could start to resemble a faction. The NAACP, National Association Advancement of Colored People, was designed to help African Americans become equal with the whites. This was designed to make up for historical reasons such as segregation and slavery. They resemble a faction because they focus on a specific race, but overall it's a voluntary association because it's an organization that not only work to help others, but also to love themselves as individuals.
The relationship between civic participation and civic virtue is that civic virtue is the value, attitude, or mindset that leads to civic participation, the action. The idea of civic virtue comes from classical republicanism founders with the idea that a person should be dedicated to the citizens while sacrificing their interests, therefore making a perfect community. Civic virtue is the idea where a person thinks that something is morally right or wrong. Civic participation, meanwhile, helps address issues that affect the community. Civic participation helps the individual become more attached to the community. In modern days, civic virtue is still alive today in voluntary organization services. The relationship between the two is that both are needed to reach its maximum potential to benefit the common good. People are not just thinking about what's best for the community, they are actually going out and taking that action. This is what's best. This is what voluntary associations are all about, looking out for the community before themselves.
that you touched on my next question a little bit in your prepared statement, but maybe you could elaborate on it. What are some costs, benefits, some positives, negatives to people participating in voluntary associations?
Well, say if you have a community of negative people that don't look at the common good of the community the same way as you, and they don't go out and such as vote or positive things for the community, and you stand up and exercise your freedom of speech and actually go out to the community and talk about it, you can not only make a change in the community, but make a change within this individual's spirit and help the community.
I would like to add on to what my partner said. The negatives and positives towards civic virtue is that not a lot of people care about the common good, they just care about themselves individually. So the fact that some people don't care about voting because they think it's not going to benefit everybody, it does, which is the positive part about it. Because if you want to make a change or make a difference in the government and you want to just sit down at home complaining, why not just go out and vote?
Great. To sort of go off of that question, social networking and with websites like Facebook and Twitter has become very popular in recent years. Would you say that benefits or detracts from social capital in society, that more people are engaging on the internet and perhaps less in person?
Can you rephrase that question?
Sure. Do you think forming online associations are more negative or beneficial to creating social capital?
I believe that it depends on how you look at it, because if a person forms a group on either Facebook or Twitter, it can be beneficial because it could be more so towards maybe a non-governmental organization like the YMCA. They have a group on Facebook, and it basically promotes you to join the YMCA, rather than, if it's in a negative sense, it could be like a group against maybe gay marriage. They can just like have a group against gay marriage, and that's like in a negative sense because not a lot of people are for gay marriage, but there are many people out there who are supportive of it, but certain people have strong beliefs towards that.
The Tea Party. Faction or voluntary organization?
I'd like to believe that the Boston Tea Party was more so, I thought it was, I had trouble researching on it, but I thought it was more so not a faction, it was more so voluntary, because people got together because they were being taxed, and not a lot of people agreed with this. So there were citizens coming out voicing their opinions on how so they weren't being represented in tax. So.
And what about the current Tea Party movement, faction or voluntary organization? Are you familiar with the Tea Party as a political organization? They're a spin-off of the Republican Party, and some would suggest that they have similar views. Some would suggest that they don't, but essentially they run on a conservative platform. And it was an entity that was derived out of some folks who were not happy with the direction of the Republican Party. And now they have someone who is giving a response to the president's State of the Union address. So they've grown in power exponentially. They've had a lot of people who were swept into office this past election cycle. Some would say they're incredibly radical. They believe in, concealed carry and assault rifles, and people should have the right to carry these things. And some people say that those are radical ideas. Would you say that having an entity like that is a faction, or is it a voluntary organization, and should we promote that?
I believe that it's a factor because not many people will want to, even though we do have the right to, carry, have weapons like for our own personal usage, but I think as a whole common good, not many people would like actually agree with that. So like many people would like take like would have like opposite views.
And build on what Charmaine saying, I consider them as a faction because they are trying to benefit themselves instead of the common good.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna ask one more, but that's okay. We're out of time about, so I think that will have to be our last question. But, thank you all very much. Questions or
I have
questions?
some feedback. In terms of content, because we're only going to focus on content, we're not going to focus on your actual presentation. In terms of content, I thought your organization was very good. Perhaps this is because of my legal background, but I love it when people lay the law out first. Tell me what the standard is, and then tell me how your interpretation applies to this standard. And when you were laying out the definitions of voluntary organizations and factions and a couple of other terms of art, you were saying this is what they are, this is how they apply, this is how our interpretation is relevant to these questions. So I thought that format was very easy to follow, it was easy to understand. I liked your use of the different organizations, using them as analogies. There was one organization that you spoke about that deals with teens. I'm sorry.
Metro Teen Aid.
What is it?
Metro Teen Aid.
Metro Teen Aid. One suggestion, if you're going to use a reference that has a high probability of being recognizable by your audience. Because I didn't know, I didn't even catch the name, I wasn't quite sure what that organization was. I'm sure you guys have an intimate familiarity with it, but I don't know who they are. I don't know what their mission statement is. I'm not quite sure how they benefit the community and how it ties into your argument. So that's just something to think about, okay? It's just something to think about.
Yeah.
I don't wanna.
I also really liked how your follow-up statements sort of went back to what you had done in your prepared testimony, particularly like going back to the definitions you had laid out. There wasn't sort of a separation between the two responses you gave. They sort of reinforced each other, which I thought was really nice. I guess I was hoping maybe for a few more constitutional references, just because the Constitution is the basis for so much of what we're discussing today. But otherwise, I thought you guys did a really great job of making your point and then backing it up with either a historical reference or a modern reference.
Yeah. I was curious maybe a few other sort of negatives that you could point out, but I thought you did a great job of giving examples of how these could be beneficial to our society. So, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have one more suggestion. When I gave you the Tea Party question, you all looked at me kind of like, excuse me, what are you talking? It's okay to ask. If you're not familiar with my reference, then say, can you give us a little bit more background? Or like, I think Jasmine asked Maggie to restate the question. That's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay to ask for a little bit of clarification. The people who are judging are probably going to be more than happy to provide that for you. Okay?